There once was a boy named Geoffrey. Geoffrey was born in Melbourne in 1912. That's right, 100 years ago. My father had come from a farming life. He was very practical. My mother had a convent education, and I grew up with a little brother who was 4 years younger than I was. My mother told us to behave ourselves. She expected us to do well in our school reports. My father used to like seeing me ride the tricycle, and he'd stand at a distance and ask me to ride towards him. When Geoffrey was young, horses were used for transport, and pen and ink was used for writing. Geoffrey has lived under 23 Australian Prime Ministers. He was 19 when the Sydney Harbour Bridge opened, 40 when Queen Elizabeth II was crowned, and Geoffrey was 50 when the Rolling Stones was formed. Do I move like Jagger? When Geoffrey was 20, he decided to join the priesthood with the Jesuits. The priest did good work, and I thought it was good to do the sort of work that a priest did, living a special sort of life. During the First World War, we lived a quiet life, and we saw each day in the newspapers long lists of men killed and wounded in the war. My father went to work one day, and then he came home, and he said, there's a rumour that the war is over. Next day, of course, we read in the newspaper that the war had finished. In those days, of course, we didn't have the benefits of radio and television. And in the Second World War, of course, we knew that we were in danger. Midget submarines came into the Sydney Harbour, and where I was living in Western Australia, the Sydney was blown up by a raider, and we were afraid that an invasion might have been made by the Japanese. We didn't feel safe until about 1 million United States soldiers came into Perth. The leaders spoke to us about it. They spoke of the terms that the Allies had given to the others, and then the soldiers began to come home, and we felt secure in regard to the defence of Australia. Way back in the Depression, life was hard in Australia. Some English experts came out and imposed austerity on us. A lot of children who had looked ahead to a university training couldn't have it because their parents couldn't afford to buy books for them. Well, it meant a lot of people were out of work. The men had to take council jobs and so on. When Geoffrey was 52, he moved to Sydney, and there was no opera house and no high-rise buildings. Geoffrey is the world's oldest teacher. He began teaching in Sydney in 1965 in St Aloysius College, and he remains there today. Well, for an old person, of course, it's harder because I have to get used to smart boards and the Google. Soon we'll have iPads in every class. I'll have to become proficient in using the iPad. Years ago, I would have just given them something, I would have dictated something for them to write and copy and learn. Nowadays, I more lead them to see what they have to learn and understand it. They're clever and they can find their own way pretty well, whereas we were shyer. Geoffrey's philosophy is to keep living. Well, to live to be 100, I think a person must take regular recreation. To be a regular reader, not only of petty dreadfuls, but of some serious books. And walking is helpful. I walk a bit, and other people say that has helped to get me to 100. One needs to be a bit careful about diet. I have porridge for breakfast. Some people say I like cake. I think they're right, but all the same, I don't eat cake morning, noon and night.
What's the hardest thing about ageing?
Or the fact that I might die. I know it'd be wonderful in heaven, but it might be rather hard getting in the door. Geoffrey would like to be remembered as a kindly sort of person and a sensible person mainly. Yes, kindly and sensible, fairly sensible.